putting them on. All right, well, welcome everybody to our stress and adrenal fatigue class, our Vibrant Health webinars. We are excited you're here tonight. Just hopefully you can go with the flow with us. We might change our order of the way we had prepared to talk, because we will hopefully try to get Amy on here, at least that she can phone in maybe. So I see her picture pop up, so we'll see if she's gonna jump on and be able to talk with us. Amy, are you there? All right, I don't hear her, so we're just going to jump in, and hopefully eventually she will jump in and be able to chat with us. So hold on one second. I'm going to pull up our other notes just so I kind of get an idea here of where we originally were going to start with, and we will go with that. Thankfully, we use this fabulous thing called Google Docs, so we all kind of have a little bit at least of each other's notes to be able to get started here.
I'm in, Brooke.
You are? Okay, awesome, Amy. Do you want to just jump in? Okay.
Yes. You guys, thank you so much. I apologize. I didn't realize that I was going to have issues with my Wi-Fi this evening until I tried to get into the call. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. My name is Amy. I'm sorry that you cannot see me during the Zoom call. I've been with Young Living for 6 years. I know that we do have some people that are new, and welcome, and we're so glad to have you. We're going to jump right in. So tonight's webinar is on stress and adrenal function, and I'm going to start out talking with you a little bit about stress. And then after me, then Brooke is going to jump in, and then Dr. Perkins is going to have a time where she speaks to you guys as well. And Roger, thank you for interpreting, and we are just so happy to be able to present this topic to you, because we know that this is a huge hot topic that a lot of people are a victim to, stress, and stress that's not well managed. And, it's part of my story that my adrenal function has been not optimal at different times in my life. And so this is something that really hits home to me. So stress defined is a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. So in the world that we live in, stress is a part of our lives. And our goal is really to minimize stress, or at least to manage it. It's really about how we react to the stress in our lives, because we all know that the stress is not necessarily going to go away. There's times that it's more demanding, but it's definitely not going to go away. So stress oftentimes starts in your head with a worry or a fear or a series of thoughts, and then that can turn into anxiety and panic. The key is not to stay there. So when you feel stress, your body ramps up production of stress hormones, and those stress hormones are cortisol, adrenaline, and norepinephrine. And then this triggers the stress response. And then at that point, the body kind of kicks into gear, and it puts all of its effort towards survival instincts of making sure that you survive, and it withholds a lot of the like normal everyday things that happen in your life. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we move on in the call. But just for instance, adrenaline increases your heart rate, causing your heart to beat much faster, and it raises your blood pressure. The cortisol can interfere with the function of the lining of your blood vessels, which can trigger plaque buildup in your arteries, and it can increase your risk for heart disease and stroke. So meanwhile, your brain is going to communicate with your gut, and it's going to say, wow, we have a major stressful, life-threatening event. And so we're not going to focus so much on things like digestion, and we're going to focus on survival. And so a lot of the functions in your body just kind of get rerouted, so to speak. So all of these things that go on in the body were designed for a purpose. We were designed to have a fight or flight defense in our body. So like when we're facing, you know, a vehicle coming running towards us, then this is a very good and effective way for self-protection. But where it can be a problem is obviously if that stress doesn't go away and our body stays in this fight or flight scenario for days, weeks, months, and that's when the body starts to have struggles. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Brooke and let her continue and talk with you about what kinds of things we can look for when we have stress in our life.
So stress is something that we all do experience one time or another. And, you know, just like Amy was talking about, it can be a good thing when we have that fight or flight. That's a good thing that we have. The issue is when we start seeing, when we don't manage it and it starts beginning to affect our body sorry, hold on, our interpreter has stopped interpreting. He's in frozen mode. I'm not sure what's happening tonight to our tech. I am sorry. Okay, he's caught up now. So let me see. I'm just trying to watch. Okay, yes, Roger, we see you now. Apologize, guys. We want to make sure everybody's getting the information. So the problem is that our body starts breaking down. And when these excess of hormones are being released, then our body is not going to respond the way it normally does, meaning our immune system suffers and our blood pressure can have issues, a lot of different things, sleep problems, low energy. So all of these things, when you start experiencing these things, you actually, the list that I'm going to about share with you, you need to go and look at, yes, these things are happening in my body and maybe I need to deal with them in certain ways. But maybe if I just address my stress, then some of these areas in my life will actually diminish, okay? So did you know that skin issues can be a cause of stress? Skin issues like acne and eczema, things like that can be a cause of stress. Headaches, if you have constant headaches, you guys, that could be because you are living in constant state of stress. Chronic pain. Sometimes we think pain, we immediately jump to that pill bottle to help us relieve pain. Hopefully you're jumping to your oils first because we know we have oils that can address pain too. But maybe it's the stress that you need to address in your life. Again, that low immune system. You guys, if we have a low immune system, then our body is going to get sick faster. We're going to be able to catch things, and it is going to be a struggle to even just get better, which causes more stress in our lives when we're not feeling well and we are trying to carry out everyday life. Depression, anxiety, all of those things, you guys. Rapid heartbeats. There are some studies out there that if you have stress for a long period of time, that it actually can lead to things like Alzheimer's and memory loss. Memory loss is huge for this, I think, and we need to really consider our lives now that we take a hold of the stress in what we're dealing with right now, so that later in life we're not suffering from the decisions that we've made today. Gut problems. I'm going to share a little bit later, and I don't know exactly how much Dr. Perkins is going to share, but there's an oil that helps us increase serotonin, which I was reading about. Actually, 90% of serotonin is in the gut, is released in the gut. And so that is important that we're taking care of our gut health. What we are eating affects our stress, which is crazy because we also hear about like comfort foods and stress eating. That happens so much in our lives. In our culture, it's that grab something to comfort myself, to help me feel better. And maybe in that momentary, that sugary feeling, that greasy French fry, it brings that somewhat satisfying moment, but it's not long lasting. So it's really important that we take a look at these things in our lives, maybe those chronic issues that you've had. Maybe you've tried to deal with them in other maybe medical ways or oily ways, but think about it tonight. Maybe just addressing your stress levels and the things that we're going to learn about, maybe that will help solve some of your life's problems, your issues that are going on. So we are going to hear now from, I think, Amy again. And she's going to talk to us a little bit about some of the things that we can do to combat stress.
Hello. So some of the things that are, well, Brooke already talked about that. Hold on. Okay, here I am. So I found my place in my notes. And some of the things that you can do to combat stress are so incredibly simple that it almost sounds too easy. When I was looking at this, I was like, really? So hugging, laughing, kissing, family time, meditation, spending time with your kids, prayer. Basically, the way I kind of interpret it is whatever makes you happy and whatever you love and enjoy doing, then those are the things you need to do. So if you're a person who loves to run, or you love to go for long walks in the evening, or you like to get up and watch the sunrise, then all of those things are going to be things that are going to help you to counteract the stress in your life. And I am sure that you guys have experienced the same thing as I have. I can just kind of be like inside the house and just kind of almost feel kind of stuck in a funk. And then I'll just go outside and sit in the sun for 10 minutes and have a glass of iced tea, or I might go walk around on my land and look at my flowers and just enjoy the outdoors. And then I can come back after having taken that break, and I feel significantly better and more able to tackle whatever it is that was causing me stress or a funk or whatever in the beginning. So really, it's super important that we pause throughout the day. Dr. Perkins actually taught me this. I was on the learning side of it as her patient, and just pausing, not sitting at the computer for 2, 3, 4 hours at a time, but stopping and pausing. And it might just be standing up and, doing stretching. And I know we've talked about some of these things in our other webinars, but how important it is to our bodies to take scheduled breaks of rest. And the other thing that I'm going to share with you that is super important to me is taking time off on Sunday. And if Sunday isn't the day that you schedule to take a rest day, you may work and not be able to take Sundays off, but take at least one day a week where you just unplug. And I didn't used to be so good about that, but because I've had so much of an effect of stress in my life, I've had to get to the point where I take this really seriously. And I've actually done quite well at taking at least 1, sometimes 2 or 3 days off per week, where I just pretty much unplug. I set my phone aside. I just spend time with my family, and I just enjoy those breaks. And I was looking at a study somewhere, I think it was actually from Convention, and they said that the most stressed individuals are the people that constantly check their phone all the time. So if you're one of those people that you find it really easy to just unplug and separate yourself from your phone, and if you plug it in the evening and you act like it doesn't exist and you spend time with your loved ones, then you get bonus points. You get extra credit, because that is really, really hard to do. We're in a world where everybody checks their email at all hours of the night, and your phone is like another child in your life. And unplugging from your phone is a huge challenge for all of us, and is also something that in the long run, it's going to affect your long-term health as well. So another thing that Brooke kind of touched on is how digestive issues can have an effect on our stress levels, and conversely, those are kind of two that support each other. Brooke, Christy Matthews is having trouble getting in. Are you friends with her on Facebook that you could help her try to get in?
I'll try to help her. I'll check it out.
Okay, it's Christy Chestnut Matthews on Facebook. So yeah, eating is hugely important. What we eat is very important, as Brooke mentioned. The other thing is taking time aside to nourish our bodies and not be rushed and eating on the go. I am totally guilty. I'm sure I'm not alone in this, of, grabbing something and throwing it in a Ziploc bag and running out the door and eating it while I'm driving down the highway. And that happens more often in my life than it should. Instead of, if you think back to, 30, 40 years ago, even for me as a child, I ate meals sitting at a kitchen table. And it was very, like, there wasn't the rush. People didn't rush as much when they ate when I was a child. And that affects our digestion when we're eating quickly and when we're not slowing down to enjoy the food, be grateful, be appreciative. So all of these things are really important. Another thing that is important is actually just exercising some every single day. For me, that usually looks like walking. I try to walk almost every day, especially when the weather is nice. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that, you go to the gym and you pump weights. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be that. If that's what you enjoy, then that's great as well. But making sure that you get some kind of physical exercise really actually helps with your stress level and your ability to come back to that situation and address it and, not maybe look at it from a different perspective, I guess. So here is something really cool that I found as I was prepping and getting ready for this class. So we talked about some of the things that can help you when you're stressed, but this is something everybody has an assignment to before you go to bed tonight. I want you to find a loved one or a friend or maybe your dog, and I want you to get a 10-second hug from that person or that animal, because a 10-second a day hug can lead to biochemical and physical reactions in your body that can significantly improve your health. According to one study, this includes lowering your risk of heart disease, reducing your stress, fighting fatigue, boosting your immune system, fighting infection, and easing depression. So I was studying for this and I was teasing my husband. I said, okay, now every single day I have to have a 10-second hug because it's going to help my health. It's like, it's required. It's like doctor's orders, like the apple a day, but we're going to say a hug a day is what you need. So it's just the little things, the little pauses, and the little intentional things that you can do to help combat stress. And then, we've done a lot of webinars at this point. If you feel like a lot of the stress in your life is your mindset and the way that you think about things, and if you just don't feel like you're good at managing stress, because like I said, the stress is always going to be there. There's definitely times and seasons where you have much more amplified stress in your life. But the truth is just everyday stress is stressful in the world that we live in. And so if you feel like you struggle with how you react to stress, then I would encourage you to go back. If you need help, we can help you find it. Go back to one of our prior webinars on mindset. One of them that I think we did a while back was mind-body connection. But I think we've done one on emotions and that kind of thing before. And that ties in really closely to what we're talking about tonight, because you can do all these things right. And if you still have stinking thinking and you're constantly thinking negatively and you're not thinking like life-affirming thoughts in your head, then you can literally be amplifying the problems and really making the stress kind of grow a bit by your thought life. So I am actually going to turn it over to Dr. Perkins now, and I'm so excited to hear what she has to share with us about adrenal fatigue.
Hey guys, hope everybody's having a good night. That was, really good things. I really love the hugging, Amy. Just thinking about a 10-second hug, makes you smile, right? So I really love that. And another thing to kind of add to counteracting stress is to think of all the things that you're grateful for. Like, how many times do we go through the day and we're like, oh, I have to do this, and, you know, I don't want to do that, and, you know, these are all my stressors. But do we, you know, ever sit down and write out a list and say, okay, I'm really thankful and I'm grateful that I have this in my life, and that, and, you know, just going through that list of things makes you rethink, you know, your stresses a little bit and realize that we all have really, really great things in our lives as well. So moving on, I'm going to talk about the adrenals tonight. And excuse my coughing. I think it's ragweed or something. I don't know. Some kind of allergy, maybe. Who knows? I think it's really bad right now in the Midwest. But you can't talk about the adrenals without talking about the whole process of how the adrenals even work. There's two different parts of our brain. One is the hypothalamus, and the other is the pituitary gland. And the hypothalamus sends signals or hormones to the pituitary gland, and then the pituitary gland sends a hormone called ACTH to the adrenal glands. And that's what makes our adrenal glands work. So when we talk about adrenal fatigue or adrenal exhaustion or resistance, there's so many different words for it. We're really talking about this whole feedback loop system from the brain to the adrenals. So I think people get a little confused in that process, that it's not really the fact that our adrenals are just like dying on us. It's this whole feedback system that gets imbalanced and gets kind of broken. So the adrenals are located on top of the kidneys, and there's an outer part called the cortex, and there's an inner part called the medulla. And the outer part is where the cortisol lives and is made and is secreted. There's also some sex hormones that are made in the cortex. DHEA is one of them, progesterone, and then from DHEA, estrogen and testosterone is made. So a lot of sex hormones, and then as well as a hormone called aldosterone, which is important for kidney function and regulating blood pressure, and really important for that. And ACTH, which is the hormone that comes from the pituitary gland, affects all of those hormones. It's not like it only affects cortisol. So that's why all the things that Amy and Brooke were talking about when they were talking about blood pressure and gut and, you know, all of these other systems in the body, that's why it affects all of that. And then in the medulla is the adrenal neuro hormone. Well, you can't really, they're neurotransmitters. And that is the epinephrine and norepinephrine, which Amy touched on as well. But those are inside the medulla of the adrenals, and those are the neuro part of the adrenals. Whereas the outer part, the cortex, are the endocrine part, the part that gets secreted into the blood. So tonight I mostly want to concentrate on cortisol, though. That's kind of a hot topic that everybody knows more about, or, you know, it's just a topic that people are interested in. And cortisol has two different modes. The first mode is a proactive mode, meaning it works in a way that it coordinates our sleep and wake cycle, or you may hear it as our circadian rhythm. It also helps with integrating sensory information. So if I touch a hot stove, that, you know, that tells me, you know, something's hot. I get that sensory signal and it comes back to my brain. And cortisol, interestingly enough, helps us coordinate that thought process. And then we have a reactive mode of cortisol, and that is the one that facilitates our cope with stress, or that our adaptation with stress. And then it also it also works with our insulin and our blood glucose. So that is like blood glucose and insulin can be a reason why our cortisol gets all messed up in our circadian rhythm, and that leads to a whole host of issues. So your cortisol, you have these different things that it can do. You have it balanced, which is that normal, good, your body's balanced, you're sleeping well. But then say you have, a certain stress hit you and your cortisol goes really, really high. At that point, it goes really, really high. We kind of talked about there's that fight or flight response. And there's a point where that's a healthy response, that fight or flight. But then there's a point where it doesn't react and go back down, and it just stays too high for a period of time. So when it stays too high for a period of time, we feel that, of course. We actually feel really awful. You feel everything is kind of the classical symptom, is you feel everything. You are, your emotions are really, really teary. You can get angry really quickly. Things like that when your cortisol is chronically high for a period of time. But our body can only hold that up for so long at that high cortisol level, and our hypothalamus, pituitary can't keep up with that high, signaling of that cortisol, and then our cortisol starts to drop. And then it gets to the point where it's too low. And it may start out, may start out that it gets low in the evening. And then, you might feel more like evening fatigue or something like that. And then you're going to have trouble getting up in the morning. And it just starts affecting your entire day, where your cortisol just cannot get high enough to a normal, let's just call it a normal level, to get you through the day without being tired or fatigued or even moodiness. It can cause a whole host of symptoms when that happens. So energy is definitely one of them. You'll feel more fatigued. You'll get mood issues where, I don't know, just moodiness, when people are like, oh, I'm just hormonal right now. And those are the kind of issues that I'm associating with that. Those just kind of, you just don't feel right. You feel out of whack. It can affect your memory as well. It can affect, we talked about your blood glucose and your insulin. So it affects food cravings. If you have low cortisol, you may start craving things like chocolate or things, more sugary types of foods. So when we get that really low cortisol, that classic symptom is you stop feeling, or you feel numb. You just feel numb. And when people can relate to that, you get to that aha moment of, okay, I'm not, you just get to the point where you're like, what's wrong with me? Like, I can't get through the day and I feel nothing. And then when you finally, somebody tells you that this could be it, it's kind of eye-opening. And then you realize that there's hope. I've had many times where I've gone over this with patients, and they just, once they realize that, they're like, oh my gosh, this is why I'm feeling nothing all of the time. So, I don't know, it's that classical symptom, but I don't think a lot of people know about it, that it could really be from those low cortisol levels. Because cortisol it's a very healthy hormone when it's balanced. It's high in the morning because you need to get up out of bed. So it shoots up in the morning. And then throughout the day, I'm trying to get my hand in the picture, but throughout the day, you want it to come down and kind of level out and be down low when you go to bed so you can sleep at night. So, and that's called a diurnal cortisol curve, if anybody was wondering. But we see these different phases of adrenal dysfunction, we call them. And that first phase is broken into a couple of different sections. But the first part of the first phase is that fight or flight response, where we just have a high cortisol. But normally we don't call that a dysfunction. That's normally a pretty healthy thing for us to have. If we are in a true fight or flight situation, say you got in a car accident, yes, your cortisol is going to jump up, and that is going to be a healthy response. But if you have this fight or flight, all day long and all day the next day and all day the next day, that's when it's not a healthy response. And that's when, you start evolving into these other phases of adrenal dysfunction. So phase 1, part 2 is this zigzag pattern that you get of your cortisol. Like it may be low in the morning, but it'll jump up in the afternoon, and then it'll drop way down, in the evening, and maybe it'll go back up before you go to bed, and that keeps you from sleeping. And then the phase 1, part 3 is that early adrenal fatigue, and that is when it's elevated in the morning, but throughout the day it's just really low. And that's when you get that early morning to mid-afternoon fatigue, and you have to drink cups of coffees in the afternoon to keep you going through the day. So that's what this graph is you just drop. And then phase 2, we just call that an evolving adrenal fatigue. And that is when it is low in the morning, and then it's just low throughout the entire day. And then in phase 3, it's an established adrenal fatigue. And and it is just a hypofunction, meaning you're really not making any cortisol. Your cortisol is just super low. It's a flat line throughout the entire day. So why does this happen to our adrenals, to this, the hypothalamus pituitary axis? One thing is stress. It obviously causes this. Blood sugar dysregulation. If you have really high insulin, high blood glucose, this is going to mess up your cortisol levels. Depression is another one. Depression can greatly influence your cortisol. And one that I kind of stumbled upon was ADHD as well. It can shift your cortisol graph. How it's high, it's supposed to be high in the morning, and then it drops throughout the day. Well, it actually kind of shifts that whole thing over. So I didn't realize that until I started looking into some more stuff today. But I thought that was really interesting. Another thing that I wanted to throw out there is PCOS, or polycystic ovary syndrome. If somebody has that, their stress response is going to be really crazy too. So when it comes to, trying to figure out, what's causing this issue, you also need to look into other hormones and not just cortisol. Look into the androgens like testosterone, DHEA, as well as estrogen and progesterone. All of those other hormones are important in discovering what's causing this issue, and then also how do we treat this issue. It's not always it's not a cookie cutter treatment to treat these. You just have to kind of figure out what works for you. But there are many different supplements can be helpful. One of the Young Living supplements is Cortistop. And I want to touch real quickly. People get confused with Cortistop because they're like, high cortisol. It's only going to work for high cortisol because it's called Cortistop. But really, that's not how it works. It's really there to balance your cortisol. So whether if it's high or low, it's there to balance the cortisol, not necessarily stop it from being high or stop it from being low. It's to get that balance between the two. And then Brooke and Amy are gonna talk about some more supplements and oils that can be helpful with cortisol levels and with adrenal issues. There's some other herbals, adaptogen herbals as well, that can be helpful with adrenal issues. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Perkins. I love hearing about all the sciencey things that I could not spit out, but it makes so much sense when you put it all together, and I love it. So thank you so much for sharing all of that and just helping us be more aware, I think, and realizing, you know, if something is off, like, go get it checked. We encourage you guys to go, you know, I know Dr. Perkins is somebody that you can go to get your blood levels checked. And, you know, it's important that we know what's going on with our bodies so that we can deal with these things, right? And the fabulous thing is that we have an incredible company that believes in incredible products, that puts out incredible products for us to use and help our bodies naturally heal from the inside out. And so what I get to share with you about are some of our oils that really combat stress, and some of those, you know, I think what Dr. Perkins was talking about was more those hormone imbalances. And if that's where you're at, then Amy's actually going to address some of those products in just a second. I'm going to talk to you quickly about just some of those oils. And I actually have, I think, 5 oils that I'm going to talk about. Within them, there's some singles that if you hear me talk about a specific single oil, that's because it's got some really good benefits for our stress levels. And so I don't know if you have a pen and paper, you might want to grab it, because I'm going to talk about these oils and kind of suggest certain areas that you would want to grab these oils, certain situations or times that you might want to grab these oils. So first of all, when we're talking about stress, of course, we're going to talk about Stress Away. It's kind of in the name. This one is really, people a lot of the time use it for their everyday stressors. It's a perfumey type of a fragrance. You can wear it all day, every day, put it in your diffuser jewelry just to kind of give you that calm. Stress Away includes copaiba and lavender, which reduce mental rigidity and restore your equilibrium too, which is great. So helping us to have that balance and a steady mind is really good. So that is Stress Away. That is one that mamas need to carry in their purse because you never know when those little moments arise in our mama stressful lives. The next oil I wanted to share about is Tranquil. Stress Away is actually available in a roll-on and in a regular bottle as well. So whichever way for more convenience in the roller is great, or you can grab it in a 5 mil or 10 mil. No, I'm sorry, a 15 mil. It's not a 5 mil, it's a 15 mil. And you can even put it with Epsom salts. It's really great for baths. The next one I'm going to talk about is Tranquil. It is a roll-on only. These are what our roll-ons look like if you're a newbie out there. This is very calming for things like if you're struggling with fear-based stress, maybe panic attacks, if that's something you deal with, aggression, if your heart is racing, maybe paranoia is something you struggle with. These are the areas that you would want to grab Tranquil. It has an amazing single oil in it called Roman chamomile. And it really helps bring down that fight or flight response. So you probably have heard of Roman chamomile tea and things like that that help you calm and stay relaxed. And those are going to help bring those levels down again. If you're feeling frazzled, this is one that I just love to have close by. If I've maybe had a stressful phone call, or maybe I've gotten bad news, I usually grab Tranquil and rub it on my wrists and neck for those kind of scenarios. Another one that's great for before bed, just to help relax. It has a lot of the sleepy oils in it that really help with relaxing, including cedarwood and lavender as well. All right, the next one is Peace and Calming. This is a favorite to many. I actually have my brand new roller here. It is, I don't know if you can see, it's kind of a, yeah, you can see, look at that. It's like a greeny yellow color. So just so you're aware, for those of you that can see that. It's fabulous for those high emotions, frustrations. If you are feeling like you're on that roller coaster of up and down and you can't get that balance in your life, Peace and Calming is amazing. It has patchouli oil in it. So you guys, patchouli oil supports, that's the one that I was talking to you about, that supports the production of serotonin and dopamine. So you know that we get those, that we talked about exercising and how that helps bring your emotions up. You get those endorphins. We call it that runner's high. Similar scenario, when you increase that serotonin and dopamine, you're getting that high that we need instead of always in a low phase. And so it will increase your mood tremendously. It also, patchouli has incredible anti-inflammatory properties. And so, like I was going back to the whole gut thing and serotonin being 90% released in the gut, A plus B equals C, it's helping our gut as well. So that's pretty awesome to know that. In this oil, in this blend, Peace and Calming, we also have some citrus oils, which are really uplifting. You can Google D-limonene. It is known to really help with your emotions and that uplifting feeling. Also, some studies out there about helping release negative emotions. If it's something that you are, an emotion maybe that you're holding on to, that you can't get rid of, that you're constantly thinking about, then Peace and Calming would be one to grab, especially for those citrus oils that are in it. This is one that if my kids are having a fit, I apply it first and ask them later. Don't ask, just apply. That's what I say. Don't ask. Sometimes they're like, no, I don't want it. Just apply it. And within minutes, you guys, you'll see those levels just kind of that calm come in, and they'll be able to rationalize and again, have that mood uplifting feeling and be able to maybe actually have a conversation. This one comes in the roll-on, just recently released actually, as well as in a bottle that you can put with Epsom salts. It's another really great one for relaxing baths. So that's the two things that I really like about that one. All right. The next one we're going to talk about is Valor. Valor is nicknamed also our Brave Oil. And this is when you know you're going into a stressful situation beforehand, apply it. It's going to help give you that courage. It's going to help, you walk into a job interview maybe, or public speaking, maybe an important phone call, any of those situations where you might have just experience some kind of stress or need to, speak with confidence and courage. I recommend grabbing some Valor. Inside Valor, there's also some great oils, including frankincense. I really could talk about frankincense as a single oil for stress as well. So everything I'm saying about it, if you have frankincense, it's another one just to be thinking about to grab for emotions as well and stress. So there's a lot of history with frankincense. It's known for its spiritual uplifting and religious ceremonies. One of the compounds in it is pinene. And there's some medical studies out there about pinene that helps reduce the inflammation of the brain. So it can help with some brain fog. If you guys are feeling that your stress has caused you to maybe not be able to focus on what's at task, your task at hand. Oh my goodness, I can't get the English out. But if you can't focus on what's in front of you, I can't focus on my words, I need to grab some frankincense or just smell my Valor. Maybe that'll help. But it will help with that brain fog. Also can help lower heart rate and blood pressure, which is awesome. Drop it in your hands. I love this one just to roll it in my hands, rub it together, and take some big deep breaths in. If you're having a moment of anxiety or a slight panic attack, so truth be known, this morning, y'all, I almost had a panic attack. The two oils that I grabbed were lavender, and I slathered it all over me, and Valor, and I cupped it in my hand And I literally just sat there breathing it in. Again, Amy already kind of mentioned it, but we have a whole class on emotions and how oils and breathing them in can change your emotions. So talk to us if you want more information about that. It's incredible. It helped calm me down. It was one stressful situation on top of the other, including having to pay another $750 to fix my AC in my van when I had just spent $500 last week. You know, money can be a stressor, right? So all of those things, my levels were up here. I had a family coming over for homeschooling event, and I was just a mess. Thankfully, my oils helped calm me down and bring me back from my panic attack and relax me. So the last one I want to talk about is actually not a blend, it's a single, and it is vetiver. Vetiver is incredible for calming. There's actually amazing clinical studies out there, which is interesting that you, Dr. Perkins, talked about ADHD, but 100% of kids that used vetiver showed improvement when they used this oil, vetiver oil. Again, maybe coming back to some of that, focus related to their stress levels and cortisol. Like, it's amazing how our bodies are all connected. So it's a great one to put on topically. Again, helps that brain fog and focus. It helps with emotional stress and panic attacks, as well as insomnia. It's a great one for nighttime as well. So those are the oils. I hope that you learned something about kind of those different array of stress oils. You guys, there's more out there. There's not even just what I talked about tonight. There literally is so many different essential oils out there for stress. The cough is contagious. Dr. Perkins, just teasing. But anyway, so I think that is what I have for you as far as the oils that you can use to help combat some of those stressors in your life.
Hi, I'm just going to say real quick, we also tried the 10-second hug thing during that rough moment this morning too, honey, didn't we? I tried anyway.
He tried. It helped. He tried. I might have tried to push him away. Hey guys, hashtag real life here. But he tried. I think he got about 10 seconds in, and it did help calm me. So people in your life, you guys, I know we didn't actually talk about that, supporting each other, but community is so important. And you know what? Part of us being here, your Young Living community, we're here to support you. If you're having a rough moment, if you're having some stressors in your life, reach out to us. We want to, be there to even talk to you, as well as recommend some oils. We're not just the oily guru. We can help and just be a listening ear too. So I know Amy and Dr. Perkins would all say the same. Any of the leaders on here would be willing to be a listening ear if you ever need that. So don't stay alone in your stress. That's for sure. Don't stay alone. You have a community of people that want to support you and help you. We'll probably recommend an oil as well because we know it works and we know it helps, but we're willing to just listen too. So, Amy, are you still on here? I see you there. I'm going to unmute you and hopefully you can jump in with your last portion.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, that was so good. I love how when we prepare for these calls, we each kind of divide up our own sections and then we go do our own research and we come back together. And every time we do these calls, I find it so amazing that I always learn from Dr. Perkins and from Brooke. I always take away several nuggets from the part that they're teaching. And I love that. That's so cool. So I am really excited to talk to you about one essential oil and then a couple of supplements that you can use to combat stress in your life. And the first thing, before I get into the supplements, that I want to reiterate to you that I think Brooke kind of highlighted on, but I think it bears repeating, is because what we're talking about tonight, if you're listening to this and some of the symptoms that we've talked about and you're like, I'm pretty sure I have adrenal fatigue, I'm pretty sure that this is a significant thing for me, then I just want to encourage you to find a health practitioner that can run some labs for you and help you navigate this because, and I do speak based on personal experience, it can be very complicated because of those complex pathways that Dr. Perkins talked about. As you look at adrenal fatigue, it can affect other hormones in your body, and it can affect other body systems. Of course, depending upon how far along in the adrenal fatigue that you are. I would be one of those people that I just kind of, looked at some different tests online, and I looked at symptoms, and I knew that I had adrenal fatigue, and I just started, using oils and using supplements, and I addressed it on my own. But if that overwhelms you, it's your body. Of course, you can make whatever decision you want, but just know that it can get a little bit complicated. And so there's some really great practitioners out there. If you don't live in the Kansas City area and you need a recommendation, then that's another thing that we would be happy to help you try to find someone who leans more towards the holistic approach. Okay, so first off, I'm going to talk about lavender, and I was so excited. I was reading this out loud to my son as I was studying for this. So lavender, they did a study. There have been lots of studies on lavender, but the first one that I thought was really exciting is they studied nurses and their stress. I have worked in nursing many, many years, and it is very stressful. Like, they live stress all the time. The demand is high, the time is low when you work as a nurse. And so what they did is they took a control group, and they put little tiny bottles of open lavender on, or somehow it was able to where they could inhale it. But they had, some of the nurses were inhaling lavender and the other ones were not. They had the placebo. And so they looked at how it affected their stress, and it showed a significant decrease in their stress level. It significantly impacted them. So that is one study that I thought was really significant. And the nurses that didn't have the lavender, their stress actually went up at the end of the study, which was crazy. So there's another study that shows that lavender improves your relaxation, and it increases your beta waves in your brain, and it improves test-taking scores. So lavender increases your your testing ability by 20%, jasmine 33%, and lemon essential oil 54%. So I feel like with the lavender, I know that, when I go back to my college days, I know, and even high school, that there's anxiety that comes along with test taking, and there's stress, and there's sleep deprivation, and all of these things. And so I feel like with the lavender, when you bring the lavender into that stressful situation, it just kind of helps to just kind of calm, bring you down a few notches to where you're able to focus, recall the information that you've studied, and be able to perform better. And then a 2001 study showed that lavender decreased mental stress and it increased alertness. So lavender is a single oil that we're all familiar with, and it's just amazing all the different ways that it can be used to help in these type of stressful situations. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about cortisol, and if I had to pick like top 5 supplements from Young Living that have changed my life and had a huge impact on me, cortisol would definitely be in the top 3. So for those of you that are a part of our O.I.L family and you're on O.I.L education, there is a video that I did a bit back. I'm not sure that it's ever been ASL interpreted. I'll have to check on that. But it is on cortisol in my story. So I did realize on my own that I was in adrenal fatigue based on the things that Dr. Perkins talked about. Not being able to fall asleep at night. I would actually get really ramped up at night to where that was my peak performance. My husband would want to go to bed and I would be like, oh no, I'm going to go clean the house, or I'm going to go work on the computer or whatever. But I just wasn't tired at night. My body would not shut down normally when the sun went down. And then I would have trouble getting out of bed in the morning. And even when I did get out of bed, I still felt tired. And then throughout the day, I would caffeinate myself to keep going throughout the day, like I believe it was Dr. Perkins mentioned. So I realized that those were issues of mine, and I started taking Cortistop, and it literally was like within, gosh, it's been a while, but I know that within a week I was completely turned around. I mean, I just felt so much better. It made such a huge difference. So Cortistop has a lot of different ingredients in it that can help with hormones and stress and balancing that cortisol. And what Dr. Perkins mentioned is Cortistop can work really regardless of where you are in that adrenal fatigue, because it's really going to help balance out those cortisol levels. It's not necessarily going to just stop cortisol. We don't want to stop cortisol, because cortisol, it has a function in the body, but it's going to regulate it as to whatever your need is based on what your body is. So it has pregnenolone, DHEA, phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylserine, black cohosh, clary sage, frankincense, fennel, and peppermint. So those all have different functions in the body, and I'm not going to go into every single one of those and what they do, but it does have to do with balancing your hormones and helping with stress and helping to balance that cortisol as well. I will tell you that with cortisol, because of the black cohosh, it's definitely not something that I personally would take during pregnancy or during a time that I was anticipating getting pregnant. And it does have DHEA in it, and DHEA can have an effect. Can have like an androgenic effect. And so Dr. Perkins mentioned PCOS. If you have PCOS, you may want to run this by your healthcare practitioner to make sure that they're okay with you taking this. Okay, so I'm going to jump into Endogize now, which is another supplement that is fantastic that Young Living makes. This is a strong endocrine supporter. And so the primary ingredient in this is ashwagandha. And ashwagandha is a phenomenal Ayurvedic medicine type of a root that is great for helping with the endocrine system and the stress and the adrenals and the cortisol and all of this. So that is the first ingredient in Endogize. And then it has a whole bunch of other different ingredients in it. It has a phosphatidylcholine in it. It has vitamin B6, which vitamin B6 is great for increasing your energy levels. And anybody who has ever had adrenal fatigue knows that that's a huge part of this, is the energy levels. You have highs and you have lows, and there's more lows than there is highs. And so the B6 is going to help with that. And I really didn't do a lot of studying on Super B, but Super B is a B complex vitamin that we have. And if you feel like energy levels are really a huge concern of yours, it's never going to hurt to start taking a complex B vitamin. Our Super B has all the different types of vitamin B in it, including B6. And so that would be another option. Back to Endogize, it also has DHEA in it, and then it has a lot of different essential oils. Cortistop also has essential oils in it as well. So with Endogize, you can expect it to support normal reproductive function for both men and women. This is a supplement that is definitely used by both men and women. So if you're listening to this call and you're like, hey, I'm pretty sure my husband has issues with his stress and adrenal function and all of that, Endogize is totally fine for men or women to use. It promotes mental clarity and alertness, helps you manage your everyday stress. It has antioxidants that are going to help with the immune system, and it can support healthy aging. The last oil, I forgot I had another oil on here. So This is a wonderful oil that a lot of us use to support our thyroid and adrenals. And it is a Young Living blend called EndoFlex. And it contains spearmint, sage, geranium, myrtle, German chamomile, and nutmeg. This is an oil that I have used a lot to support my thyroid and adrenals. And honestly, there's several different ways to use it. You can take it and you can just place a drop in your hands and just, swirl it around like Brooke was talking about and just inhale it. That's a great way to do it. You're basically getting it topically and you're also inhaling it. So you're also getting the benefit of breathing in the oil as well. You can also apply it up to 3 times a day over your thyroid and over your adrenals. And so your thyroid is in your neck. So a lot of us will put this oil on, the front of our neck, and it actually smells really amazing too. So it's a great oil that you won't mind the smell of at all. I feel like the primary aroma in it is the spearmint, and it just smells pretty delicious. You can also take it, as Dr. Perkins mentioned, the adrenals sit on top of kidneys, and they're closest to the back of our body. So you can actually take EndoFlex and you can put it on the back left and right of your body, and just your lower back on the left and the right side. And you can do that up to 3 times a day. This oil is going to be most effective when you use it at night. So I have definitely used this, but I have never been consistent enough to use it 3 times a day. So when I was looking at this, I was thinking, I wonder how that would have affected me just doing the oil had I been very faithful and consistent about doing it 3 times a day. So that concludes our call tonight on stress and adrenal function. And I hope that you guys have found some really good and solid information. We can open up to questions now if you guys have any pertinent questions, or if there's anything that we weren't clear on. I know that some of you on the call, I'm not going to call you out, but I know some of you have had good success with Cortistop. Besides me, you've had a huge turnaround with that. So if you want to share your brief story, we would love to hear from you. And if not, that's totally fine as well. I'm going to mute myself, and if you guys have any questions or comments, then feel free to jump in.
Sorry, I was typing there for a second. I was updating the 2 supplements that Amy talked about. I was putting it in the chat, and then EndoFlex was the oil. I have also used Cortistop. That has been really helpful, and I honestly attribute it to helping me lose weight as well, because I think I had some stress-related belly weight. I don't know how to say that, but that's just what it is. So anyway, I do really feel like it helped me have more energy and be more stable in my emotions. And I can tell when I haven't taken it and when it's not been a regimen in my life. So definitely it has been one that has helped me as well. Just stay balanced, honestly, and be able to handle life and the busyness of my schedule and everything that's on my plate. It's super helpful for me, for sure. So it was for me. I have not tried Endogize yet, but it sounds like an amazing one as well. EndoFlex is incredible. I know lots of people that wear it even as perfume as well, and use it to support their thyroid. So does anybody else have any questions in regards to what we've talked about tonight?
I just have a comment too. EndoFlex comes in a Vitality bottle, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so you can make it internally. You can make your own capsules. I don't know how great it would taste in water, honestly, but I would recommend making capsules with it if you were going to take it internally. So.
Okay, and then the second thing I had is Cortistop the one that for men it's not usually recommended, or am I thinking of a different one?
Amy, do you remember? I'm pretty sure it's
or
for women.
the men should only, if a man decides to use it, it should be just briefly. It shouldn't be ongoing.
I mean, I don't know. Dr. Perkins, we would totally be putting you on the spot to ask you about this. My only concern is it has pregnenolone in it. And so I don't know if she has a comment on that. I would probably personally lean more towards the Endogize. I think that Robert has taken Cortistop, but he's only taken it for like a couple of days when he has like some major work stress going on. I don't know about long term. I don't know that it would be the best choice.
I mean, men can take it.
They can. Okay.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why they couldn't. Because men need pregnenolone too. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
It does say in the desk reference, it does say Cortistop Women's. So I don't know if it's formulated specifically for women, maybe, but I think, like you're saying, high stress situation, maybe take it for a couple days wouldn't be a bad thing. Kind of like also Shutron is formulated for men, but women can take it too. So I think it's probably that kind of a concept is what I'm looking at from here.
Yeah, I think that they actually updated the labeling. I think I saw Dr. Jim Bob do a excerpt on that or something, and I think he was saying, hey, it is for men too. And I think that they pulled the women's out of the name, and I think now it just says Cortistop on it. So I tend to think that Dr. Perkins is correct, that it is really fine for men to take it. But in the olden days, we always thought it was a women's supplement because it was labeled as such.
Great, thanks.
No problem. Anybody else have any thoughts or questions?
Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We are excited that you were on here. If you're listening to the recording and you have this and you have some other questions, please let us know. Again, there's so many other oils and supplements out there that Young Living has to support adrenals and endocrine system. So we have not mentioned all of them by any means. So if you come across a product and you're like, ooh, I wonder if this would help, send us a message. We'd love to help you, direct you to some research and get that information to you because so many options out there where all of our bodies are different, right? And so we all need different things, different amounts of things. And so, yes, happy oiling and be oily, stay inspired, live well. We are just happy that we could get on here and educate you tonight. So stay well. We'll talk to you all soon.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Good night.
Good night.